Hello and welcome to the Legacy ChangeMaker broadcast. It is Friday and we're here again with another very, very special changemaker. And his name is Karun Gopinath. But before I tell you about Karun, let me tell you that the Legacy ChangeMaker broadcast is here to connect, celebrate, and inspire changemakers from all over the world to further work wholeheartedly towards a more peaceful, prosperous, hopeful, and people and planet-centered world. So, thank you for being here. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to put them in the chat, no matter if you're watching on YouTube or in LinkedIn. We will get them, and we will make sure that Karun will answer them. So today, as I said, we will be chatting with Karun. And Karun, I met Karun in 2018 in Geneva when he was studying towards his master's degree in international development. And I was really impressed by the energy he had, by the connection with people he made, by the purpose he was living, and of course, by how he was handling the circumstances he was in. So, when I was looking for yet another speaker who inspires and who has inspired me, it was very easy to think of Karun. And just to let you know, Karun holds multiple degrees from different places in the world. He has a degree in development, a degree in journalism, and another one which doesn't come straight into my mind, but he's going to tell us more about it. And today, and let me tell you, he has been awarded the Davis Project Peace Award for 2020. And that's something really, really special. Very few people get this award. And having said this much, let me welcome Karun. Hey, Karun, are you with us?
Hi, Biliana. Always a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
It's a real pleasure. And today we will be discussing lifting the veil of silence around menstruation in India. And I'm so happy I'm really happy. So, Karun, please tell us, why is it that you are behind this huge change?
Thanks, Biliana. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And well, my journey into the development field was an accident. It started off in the space of insurance, there's microcredit, and then I walked into a government school in Bangalore, and thus far, it's been almost 12 years in this space. Now, why am I addressing a topic such as menstruation in India? Well, at this point in time, you have unicorns, organizations that are raising over $1 billion in valuation in subjects like STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But nobody's actually willing to address the socio-cultural challenges that exist and plague Indian society. So, with the confidence that I have of the people that I met and spoke with, I'm hoping my team is here. I was inspired to address a topic that very few people are willing to address. So that's my foray into this space, and I'd be happy to tell you more about it as we progress in this talk today.
That's really amazing. And yes, we do have some 15 people watching us on YouTube. I hope we have more on LinkedIn, but I can't see their number. So you already told me your why. So can you tell me what has been the most difficult thing thus far? The biggest challenge you've had?
The challenges are big and they are numerous. I think operating in the environment or the milieu that we do, given the socio-cultural challenges that exist in Indian society, I think that is an extremely large challenge. And is it something that we can solve in this generation? Well, I hope so. But yet we are yet to see whether that transformation is something that will come through. Having said that, in the environment that we operate in as an organization, there's not too much love for nonprofits in India. But that trend is changing, and I really hope that we face the uptake and we are considered equal stakeholders in the development journey in India.
Amazing, really amazing. I hear you when you say that there's not a lot of support for non-for-profit organizations, but do not forget that social entrepreneurship is something which is on the rise, and you don't have to always rely on donors and on funding, right? So,
Yeah.
can you please tell us a little bit more? How many people will this change affect?
Oh, the numbers are large, right? I mean, you're sitting, or rather, we met in Switzerland with a population of 8 million. And this, for example, the topic of menstruation affects 23 million girls each year. That's almost three times the size of the population of Switzerland. And eventually, more than 200 million women suffer from unsafe menstrual health and hygiene practices. So, with our intervention, we're hoping to create a dent, though that's a large number to address. But nonetheless, a single drop contributes to making an ocean, and that's where we'd like to start.
So, please tell us a little bit more about your intervention.
Certainly. Uh, so, the organization that was established is called the Collective Consciousness. And like you said, it's not just money that drives nonprofits. It's also the collective power and the human capital that exists globally, and that's what we want to leverage. And that's what Project Devi does. It's an aggregation of people with backgrounds in science, in development, in data, all coming together to address a topic that very few people are willing to speak in the mainstream. So, Project Devi is looking to lift the veil of silence around menstruation and mainstream the conversation of periods, which is actually just a natural bodily function. So, we are leveraging technology to create a safe learning space for girls from some of the most vulnerable communities in India and eventually the world, where we're able to openly speak about something that happens to us or girls naturally.
Can you give us an example, please? How do you leverage technology to open up this conversation?
Sure. So, given the set of beneficiaries that we're trying to address, if I walked into a government school and I started talking about a taboo topic like menstruation, there's going to be an immediate shutdown of the subject, right? Nobody's going to be receptive. It's a private conversation. It's something that perhaps their own mothers don't have with girls. But what we're trying to do is create this interface where we leverage kinesthetic learning, audiovisual elements to allow children to navigate through the topic in a very interactive form that allows for high retention and recall of information. We believe that technology is a key driver in this subject. Using images, using stories, using games is something that's going to make it fun. And what are physical games? Well, we've taken and converted into technology, and we're hoping that girls will be able to navigate through this topic and eventually familiarize themselves and therefore understand the importance of safe menstrual health and hygiene practices.
I hear you when you're saying that girls will be able to navigate through the topic. But how will boys be able to navigate through the topic? Because this is equally important. Remember, he needs to stand for she and the other way around, just like you do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Without doubt, we believe that boys are equal stakeholders because if you want to see that paradigm shift, I think it takes two hands to clap. So while our intervention is initiated and targeted for girls to begin with, there is no doubt about the fact that we will eventually pivot the program to support boys who would otherwise really not learn about what menstruation is through a textbook, through the conversations. So we want to start that conversation early enough too. And we were lucky enough to receive a grant from a leading organization called Youth Ki Awaaz for the ideas and the intervention that we propose to support boys in understanding menstrual health and hygiene.
Great. This is amazing. Now, let's deconstruct a little bit the topic of menstruation. Why is it a taboo in India?
Well, there are multiple reasons, and that manifests in the various superstitions and myths that exist in Indian society. For example, if I were a menstruating girl and I went into the kitchen and touched the food, somebody would construe it as unholy food or dirty food. If I touched a cow, if I was a menstruating girl, then the fear is that the cow will stop not menstruating, but not give milk. Right? If I ate pickle, that could cause bodily damage for me. So, these are the myths that have evolved, and unfortunately, they even exist today. So, that's what we want to bust. We want to look at it from a scientific perspective and say, hey, look, it's a normal bodily function, and nothing is really ruined by having your period every month.
Yes, this makes me feel, I mean, as much as I honor tradition and as much as I honor collective consciousness, we have evolved as humans, and we have learned from science. And we do
Yeah.
know that there's a difference between myth and scientific research and scientific findings. So that would be great. So, how do you intend to incorporate science in the gamification of the topic of menstruation?
Oh, that's a great question, Biliana. So, to begin with, we start by breaking down menstruation into scientific topics, right? How does the function of period take place? What is your body undergoing because of your menstrual cycle each month? We start with that, and then we leverage other scientific features, which is using data, using previous studies on how best to create or to break the information asymmetry around the subject, and then eventually kind of create an opportunity for recall and recollection of the subject, which is something that people can either, or girls, could easily suppress if a subject as taboo as this is explained to them. So that's how we want to use science, that's how we want to use technology. It's not just fun and games, it's also with a lot of thinking, a lot of UI and UX, well thought out, well designed elements that are going to eventually affect positive behavioral change.
Great. I do understand what is UX. I assume it's user experience, but what is UI?
Absolutely. It's user interface,
Okay,
equally
user
important.
interface. Okay, so great, great. Who are you bringing along as partners?
Anybody is an equal partner. Going by the organization's name, the collective consciousness, it's been so heartening. The organization saw its genesis during the height of COVID-19, and there are 2 3 integral members who have stood by me as my teammates and now co-founder of the project, who have given me the strength to say that, look, together we can address this taboo topic. And that said, it's a bunch of experienced, inexperienced, just entirely committed people who have come together to give their skills, to give their time, and to develop the product itself. And so it's been incredible to see the human capital come together to put Project Devi and create what it is today.
And how are you developing it together with the users?
We are constantly in conversation with users, the end beneficiaries. We've run extensive surveys that span across geographies. The furthest beneficiary is about 2,500 kilometers away from where we sit. But we've used technology again to have these conversations. Of course, we've been shooed away by some mothers and fathers saying, "Oh, how are you having this conversation around periods? Get away from my daughter." But nonetheless, it's never deterred us to continue to learn, because at the end of the day, I might come with certain perceptions, my team might come with certain perceptions, but ultimately, what we're designing is for that end beneficiary, and we need to learn on an everyday basis from them.
Great. Thank you for mentioning the verb learning. And as we know, the more we learn, the more we change. So, can you please tell me, how has the learning you've accumulated changed you? personally? And how has the learning changed your teammates?
Oh, learning is a continuous process. I think, just internally, externally, multiple stakeholder conversations, reading reports, articles, everything has broken down the preconceived notions that we came with. While we got into the subject and we were lucky enough to be incubated by one of India's most popular incubators, what that program or PPT looked like in June 2020 to what the product is today is completely different. And that's only the underpinning or the foundation on which all of this is built is by this continuous learning cycle that we've engaged in. So, no doubt it's the most or the largest contributing factor to create a breakthrough product.
Okay, great. So, can you give me an example of a perception that you had to change?
Technology itself,
Mm-hmm.
you had people represent large incubators and the skepticism around technology, and that's where we felt that is technology a product of the privilege, right? It's something that you and I can use StreamYard to communicate, but downstream, when you go to the bottom of the pyramid, while there are cell phones and smart cell phones available, the adoption of this technology, is it something that people perceive is natural enough? No. A lot of people believe that it's not yet a privilege of the bottom of the pyramid. But having said that, we're steadfast, right? That transition and that evolution is taking place with each passing day. And we're confident that you will see a great evolution in the way people behave because of technology.
Okay, great, great, great. How has your behavior changed due to this evolution or revolution? Actually, it is a revolution.
Oh,
Just give
it's
us an example.
it's ironic, Biliana. I think within my own team, while we are designing disruptive tech products, the funny part is, uh, well, I wouldn't have known the full form of UI and UX 1 year ago, right? So by engaging more so with technology, I think we've come to learn of its incredible power. So I think, as someone who's seen that design, the transition happen, and envision what that end product could look like, I think that transformation for me has been so pivotal.
Okay, so can you please tell us what have you achieved thus far?
Achieved is well, from a very philosophical sense, I think the fact that we continue to exist for an organization that was born in the pandemic, point one. Point two, for the fact that we are inspired each day about what we want to do, what was just an idea and as it's coming to life is a true inspiration as we progress each day. And having said that, 200 million women, like I said, women and girls are affected by unsafe menstrual health and hygiene practices. If we can create a small ripple in this extremely large number, I think that's a great legacy to have created going forward. So yeah, I mean, that's the change that we want to see.
Great, great. And are you taking some examples from some educations around the world in which sexual health and menstruation is a topic which is taught early on?
Oh yes, of course. I mean, having all of us, within the team and our conversations with people, we're all thinking about that science lesson around the reproductive system, right? Where teachers would rapidly skip past pages. It's a topic that's really not addressed so carefully. But having said that, especially for most of us who have been abroad and seen the kind of thinking in the open conversations that people would have, sourcing from all of that, we believe that this is a privilege that should be passed on to some of our own countrymen. So without doubt, we believe that this conversation needs to happen early. It's going to arrest dropout rates in India if we're successful in deconstructing and making sense of safe menstrual health and hygiene practices. And we continue to learn from every market what works, what doesn't work, and what can be evolved specifically for our people is something that we are constantly doing on a day-to-day basis.
Now, I want to get a little bit more personal, if you don't mind. What do you
Of course.
think was your biggest success? What are you most proud of at a very personal level, something, a mountain that you managed to climb yourself?
um, I think, while the funding, etc., is one thing, for me, I think the greatest discovery is the people around me who've come together to support, well, what is a collective dream? Right? I can't say it's my dream. The people around me have come together, they believed in it, they've made the sacrifices that perhaps I wouldn't have made as a 25-year-old, or perhaps I did as a 25-year-old, but here they are giving their everything, just looking at the bigger picture. Right? What does that bigger picture look like? We're still answering it, but just the power of the collective consciousness. Like somebody said, this sounds like a fantastic yoga retreat organization, but the truth of the matter is, if you dig deep, it's a very powerful bringing together of people. And I think that would be my biggest achievement yet.
That's a lot. That's a huge achievement, having the capability and the inspiration to bring people together and to work on such a touchy topic as menstruation in a country where, for some people, it is taboo. It is
Yes.
indeed a big undertaking. So, from everything that you've learned, what are some tips that you would like to give to the women, the girls out there on the topic of menstruation? And of course, on the boys, to the boys who would fully need to support them and understand and be empathetic.
Absolutely. So I think the first and the last lesson that I'd like to kind of pass on to everybody is, times have changed. We are not stuck in this whole patriarchal society in a medieval context. So let's accept and let's evolve to who we are, and let's believe that each one of us are equal stakeholders. That's something that I learn every day from my own life. Uh, Perhaps it's coming from the privilege that I've been brought into, but I think that's just a matter of time that we're able to pass on to the bottom of the pyramid, and truly to believe that they're equally capable of anything that any of us are capable of.
Yeah, beautiful. The more we can tap into our collective creativity in order to live a conscious life, the better it will be for all of us, for each and every one of us, and of course for the planet we are living on.
Absolutely.
So, I want to remind the viewers, and we do have some 14 that I see here. If you have any questions, now is the time. Please do not hesitate to drop your questions in the comments below, and we will put them on screen. But while you're thinking about your questions, let me ask Karun one question. Now, if nothing was a limit and everything was possible, what would be the first thing you would do?
I would wake up. If only that were true, that there was this unlimited potential. But on a more serious note, I think I would remind everybody that that privilege is an equal right. Right? Sometimes we forget in our own behaviors. Sometimes those who are not as privileged also kind of ignore that. But having said that, I think just believe that you are capable of incredible things. And if that message is passed on, I think we'd have a better world for tomorrow.
Can you summarize it in one sentence? What is the message that needs to be passed on?
Privilege is an equal right. I think that's the mission and motto of the organization. And I'd say that that's something that's applicable to every individual that walks the face of earth.
What does this mean? What does it mean that a privilege is an equal right?
Well, given our structures, be it political, legal, social, economic, there is this incredible skew of how the world functions today. But let's take away all those barriers and not limit ourselves by these very invisible contours that divide us. right? So take that away and believe that privilege is an equal right. Fight for it, demand it, and hope that all of us exist in a paradigm that is equal.
And work towards it, right? We have some comments from our viewers. Thank you very much. Um, Seluka, Seluka, if I'm pronouncing that
Suleka.
correct. Suleka, yes, says involving boys in such a great such a great idea to positively affect the social cultural norms. I'm curious to know what sort of responses you get from boys in your effort to educate them.
So, like a very important question. I think the first response that we get is resistance. Right? This continues to be a taboo topic, and something that boys are not able to wrap their heads around. Right? Be it from your best schools, be it from your low fee private schools or government schools. But that enrollment process is gradual. It's going to take time, it's going to take effort, and it's going to start with explaining why that change is important. I think as we start early enough, the outcome is something that we'll see in about 10, 15 years from then, when boys find their partners and they're able to understand what are some of the challenges that girls go through, be empathetic and be equal partners to that entire process, and not get stuck in the myths and superstitions that they perhaps used to back home.
Yes, we have another question, and it comes from Tamana. Thank you, Tamana, for asking it. Insightful talk, Karun. Could you please talk more about barriers faced on ground within the community, and how is the organization tackling them?
Oh, the barriers again are multiple, right? So, for example, if it comes to a menstrual product, right? If so, you have a variety of options, a plethora of options, uh, but let's say you want to create that paradigm shift of, say, adopting a menstrual cup. It's not an easy conversation to have. It's going to take strong enrollment from both parents. And to be honest, we've really not overcome that barrier as yet. We continue to face that challenge. But having said that, coming back to the information asymmetry around the subject itself, we're seeing an incredible buy-in from school stakeholders, be it principals, be it teachers, be it government officials, which I think is a real large barrier that we don't kind of acknowledge. But the inspiration and the push that we see from them is allowing us to take these conversations to a large population, right? Talking to a classroom of 30, 40 people, which otherwise is difficult if you had to do it individually. So I think these are the barriers that we've been able to overcome, and that change is slowly and steadily going.
Yes, that's great, Karun. And of course, let's remember one co-inspirer and one co-conspirer at a time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We have two more comments, so thank you very much for the questions. We have actually three more comments. We have this one from Nide, who says, this has been very interesting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the work of the collective consciousness going forward to beat these biases, internal and external. Great work, Karun. Yes, indeed. And we have here another comment from Jency, who says, kudos to the work the collective consciousness is undertaking. And we have another one from Shivam. Shivam, this is what he's saying. You are such a great inspiration, Karun. So thank you so much. Before I let you go, can you please tell us, what are you inviting everybody who is listening to take an action to?
Um, I think the most important thing here is, again, not to take our privilege for granted. It is the fact that no matter where you are, you can affect change. It could be those small little steps. Uh, have those conversations with people around you. It could be your domestic help, it could be your employers, it could be your family, it could be a child that you meet, specifically around menstruation. It's not something that the collective consciousness can single-handedly achieve. It needs all of you to come together and be equal partners. So effect that change, however small it is, right, through conversations. And it's incredible, in terms of response what you will see, right? It could be a positive behavioral change. It could be organizations coming together and saying, hey, this is a great cause that we want to support. It could eventually be policy that people are willing to review and reform, which could affect millions of lives just overnight. And I know all of these people who have made these comments here, and perhaps all the people who are watching, you are equal stakeholders. You are in some form going to affect policy conversations with your employees, etc. So take lead. Take lead. It's not something that exists within a small community. It requires all of us to come together to create that change.
Yes, please do take lead and do keep believing in the power of conversation, one conversation at a time. This has been indeed a very, very inspiring talk, Karun. Thank you so much. I wish you and the collective consciousness and all your future partners and present teammates great learnings, great steps moving forward, and we're looking forward to celebrating you again in the future.
Thanks, Biliana, for this incredible opportunity, for all of you who have attended this session. And I think what we'll celebrate is to see that behavioral change that we all dream of. Right? When that day comes, I think that's worthy of celebration. So thank you once again for this opportunity. And I hope to see you once again in Geneva and share another cup of Stettler hot chocolate. I look forward to that.
Yes, me too. So good luck in everything. Take care and stay healthy and happy. And to all of us who have been watching us today, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. And thank you for taking action. See you again next Friday.